Welcome to the IPL 2005 bowling big board for this auction. Unlike the last mega auction, this time teams can also use the right to match depending on how many blah 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 blah. No one cares. Essentially, all we've really done here is we tried to look at the best option for each role type. We've looked at their performance in the IPL since the last mega auction. We also factor in things like form and age, because you're not just picking a player for 1 year, but multiple. But we also had to include some bowlers who've not played a lot in the competition. The batters will come soon, but first you'll need to like and comment and subscribe. But right now, let us get to our bowling big board. Thanks to Powerplay, I was able to make this. Their advanced technology can help any cricket team elevate their skills and performance. For left arm seam, we have started with Arshdeep Singh. He is 25 and yet to reach his peak. He bowls the majority of his work at the top and the tail, so his numbers aren't always going to be pretty. And he didn't have a great IPL numbers in the last cycle, but his record for India has been incredible. 95 wickets in 60 games. And there really aren't a lot of obvious left arm bowlers to jump ahead of him here. Punjab do have the flexibility of getting him with their right to match card, of course. If I had my way, I would have just put T. Natarajan up top. But he is second due to age and injuries, if we're being honest. He has the best true economy of all the Indian left-arm quicks in the last 3 seasons. He's an all-phase bowler, and he probably doesn't even get used enough in the middle, where perhaps he's also at his best. He was the only one to bowl 100 Yorkers, with the second best being Arshdeep with 85. Although he does try and bowl more Yorkers than other people, but you get my point. He's very good at these things. But he's had lots of injury concerns, and he's 33. Sunrisers cannot use their right to match on him. I think Trent Boult was without a doubt the best left arm quick and the best new ball bowler in the last 3 seasons. He doesn't have a central contract with New Zealand anymore, and with him you get an experienced bowler that has gotten better at T20 cricket and doesn't really have to worry about anything else. You really have to use a lot of him up front though. It's 2 or 3 overs in the power play. But he now has a knuckleball, which is not too bad himself. And he might be the greatest first over bowler in the history of T20 cricket. I mean, the longer the power play goes and the longer the game goes, the less use he is. But that first over is so incredible. And last year, no one could hit him. Khalil Ahmed is also at his best in the power play. In the last 3 seasons, he went at 1.14 runs less than expected while bowling up top. However, he's not a massive wicket taker. Like Arshdeep, Marco Jansen is also young and has World Cup experience, plus he has a little bit of batting. He's a high usage bowler during the field restrictions, which is when 13 of his 18 IPL wickets have come. It's also very handy to have a really good series against India just before a mega auction. I think based on age, you could make a case for him being slightly higher than the other 2 players ahead of him. However, he's still not really that consistent with what he does in T20 cricket, so he's still a little bit of a prospect. Mustafizur Rahman is 29. He looked great last season in the few games that he played, and he's still definitely a banker in this position. Faruqi's only played 7 games in the IPL, but he was brilliant in the T20 World Cup. Stark had a poor start last season, but he came really good towards the end of the league in the playoffs. I've still got him ranked ahead of Spencer Johnson, Josh Little, and Nandre Berger. They're all very good. They could all easily leapfrog him in this cycle. And in fact, if I was working for a team, I would probably pick Spencer Johnson or Nandre Berger ahead of Mitchell Stark at the moment. But the difference is we've just seen Mitchell Stark bowl very well in a couple of important games. We just haven't seen these guys do that yet. And then right down at the bottom, we have Sam Curran, the Prince of Punjab, right? He's a much better T20 player than the way he was used at Punjab. But he does need a very good team to go in with. And at the moment, I just don't think he's bowling particularly well. As an all-round package, he would jump up here. But if you're just looking at left-arm seamers, I think he's quite rightly at the bottom here. Now let's have a look at off-spin. And I have decided to put Washington Sundar at top. And absolutely no one who's ever been on this page once in their life is going to be shocked by that at all. But part of the reason for this, of course, is his batting. And it's also his age and his particular skill set of being a good bowler in the power play. I think the reason he's number 1 probably says more about the fact that Ashwin is getting on a little bit and there aren't that many other off-spinners. That said, I still think Ashwin is one of the better defensive spinners in the league, and of course he gives a little bit of batting. How well he's going to go for the entire cycle, or even if he's going to continue to play for the entire cycle, is why he's behind Washington here. But if you do want someone to help with strategy and, just out of the box thinking or whatever it is that Ashwin does, it still means that he's a very, very handy bowler. But he is 38, so by the end of this cycle, he's going to be in his 40s. You might just want someone younger. But this is where it gets really tricky because all the other offies are either prospects or part-timers. Tanush Kotian had a very good record in the Syed Mushtaq Ali Trophy and obviously can bat a little bit. Ritik Shakeen played 13 games for the Mumbai Indians, picking up only 5 wickets. These 2 guys are 26 and 24, so they could be very good backup spin options if you want an off-spinner around. Then you have Lalit Yadav, who I've been long obsessed by. He's about to turn 28, and I'm hoping he's about to enter his prime. Might be a better bowler than he is a batter when it comes to T20 cricket at the moment. But there are other players as well. You have Gautam, who has some IPL experience. And even though he was overhyped a few years ago, he's obviously a fairly handy player. I would say that Sikandar Raza is probably a more useful bowler than a lot of these guys. And he's done incredibly well with the ball in the last couple of years. But it hasn't translated at the IPL level all that much. And realistically, he's always been more of a batter than a bowler. Mohammad Nabi can't even get on the field in the IPL, but he's a very good overseas player to have in your squad because of the versatility he can give you. He can bat at 5, 6, and 7, and he is a very good natural off spinner. The only problem is he hasn't been making runs of recent times, and to be fair with him and Sikandar, they're just really old. The next two players on our list are absolute part-timers in Moeen Ali and Glenn Maxwell. They both have really, really good numbers. They just don't bowl all that much. You're never going to pick either of these guys solely for their bowling. And realistically, you can't expect to get more than 2 overs per game out of them. In fact, in Maxwell's case, it was like 8 balls per game. But they will be a handy 8 balls per game. Well, not if he actually bowled 8 balls a game, because that would probably mean he's bowling wides and no balls. But you get my drift. Then we have a bunch of all-rounders like Will Jacks, Glenn Phillips, and Aiden Markram. All of these are around that 8 ball a game mark. Maybe 2 overs a game if you're lucky again. Maybe the most interesting prospect, though, of course, is Dan Mosley, who is the quickest spinner, according to CricViz, and just according to my eyes, that we have ever seen. I'm not even sure he's actually a spinner, but he's a really good fielder, can bat a little bit as well. If nothing else, how will bowling leg stump Yorkers at 117 kilometers an hour work in the IPL? I'm not sure how it works for him so far, but he's been making it sing. But certainly, if he's going, it's going to be as a prospect. Left arm finger spinners, and we have Krunal Pandya at the top. But remember, this is a list of defensive bowlers more than anything else. None of the left arm finger spinners that bowl 200 deliveries and are in the mega auction were positive when it comes to true wickets. I think Krunal Pandya has been comically underrated right throughout the IPL. He's had some up seasons and some down seasons, but he is a very, very economical bowler. And he bowls about 15 deliveries per match, so we're looking at someone who's much more towards a first choice bowler here. His batting isn't great, and he's 34. Him being number 1 on this list tells you that there's not a lot of huge talent here. Saikashore has been very good in the 10 matches he's played for Gujarat. He picked up 13 wickets at 8.82. He's 28, so selecting him should be somewhere towards his prime as a spinner. I like him quite a bit, and I think he's kind of been underused at times. Punjab could use their right to match to buy back Harpreet Brar, who takes wickets slightly more often compared to other left-arm finger spinners, which makes him a strike bowler in this genre. But he does go for more runs. Shahbaz Ahmed is probably the best batter amongst these three, but he conceded 1.9 runs more than expected in this previous cycle. And he also doesn't take wickets. You're picking him for his batting, and you want 5 other bowlers in your side if he's playing. Then we have all the overseas options. Mitchell Santner is very similar to Krunal Pandya. He probably just bats a little bit lower in the order. And he's played really well in the IPL as a defensive spinner. 2024 has been Keshav Maharaj's most prolific year as a T20 bowler. 43 of his 154 wickets have come this year, but he is 35. But if you do want an experienced overseas bowler, he's a good one to have. To be honest, of this group, I would probably have Akil Hassan the highest. Certainly, he would be the first one I would take off this board if I was looking for one of these 3 overseas players. Because he can bowl in the power play, because he has that ball that swings backhand, and also he can slog a few for you. I think he's the one who will give you the most upside in this group. But of course, the issue for all these guys is that IPL teams have historically ignored overseas spinners not named Sunil Narine or Rashid Khan. Shams Milani and Kumar Kartikeya are 2 Indian spinners who don't have a lot of IPL experience, but have done well domestically. Milani can also bat, of course. Both of them played a little bit for Mumbai last year, and they primarily bowl in the middle overs. When we get to the right arm wrist spinners, Chahal took more wickets than any other bowler in the previous 3-year cycle. So any team that picks him has a bankable wicket taker. However, he is conceding a lot more runs now. There's no doubt about that. He is not the efficient machine that he once was. Rahul Chahar went for 0.5 runs and over less than expected last year, but even though he's a wrist spinner, he bowls more like a left-arm finger spinner when it comes to taking wickets, i.e. he doesn't take many. But he is quite experienced for a 25-year-old, but like Chahal, he's not part of the Indian T20 side. Hasaranga was outstanding for RCB in the 2022 edition, had middling returns next time, and did not play a game for Sunrise. He has 2 great skills. He hits the stumps a lot, and he can also slog a bit. We haven't seen enough of the slogging yet. I think he definitely deserves another shot in the IPL, especially at a time when it's a bit of a weak crop. Next, we have 2 Indian wrist spinners, Syed Sharma and Mayank Markandi. Sayesh is 21 and his true numbers are quite similar to Rahul Chahar. So again, another defensive light leg spinner. I kind of liked him last year, but because KKR had two of the best spinners in the league, he really didn't get many opportunities. I think he's really worth a flyer, and I'd be willing to pay him a little bit extra to get him in my squad. Markandi is 27 now, and so this could be the right time to invest in him. He went for runs in the previous cycle, but he does take 25% more wickets than expected. But on true wickets, he is 0.25 ahead of the game, so he does take some victims. P.S. Chawla actually has a slightly better record than Chahal. Of course, he has not played anywhere near as much. He's still around. I think you can get him pretty cheap and put him on your bench for when you need him. He, of course, is 35, even though it feels like he's been playing for like 35 years. So I like the idea of him. Khan Sharma is actually older than P.S. Chawla, and he did not have a great run in this last time period. He does actually take wickets, but he also went at more than a run and a half over more than we would expect. As we've mentioned earlier, IPL teams don't tend to go for overseas bowlers. So while Zamp has a pretty solid IPL record in the few games he's played, 29 wickets in 20 games at just under 8 runs and over, chances are he's not going to get picked up again. I would certainly have him ahead of Adil Rashid, who didn't bowl particularly well against the West Indies recently, but I'm not too worried about him. And then Livingston, who I suppose is not even just a wrist spinner, is he? He's also a finger spinner. He's a decent matchup option, but I really don't think you could ever use him as anything more than your 6th bowler. Anytime teams try and use him as like the 5th bowler, it goes horribly wrong. We put the left arm wrist spinners and the mystery guys all in the same thing. Obviously, Theekshana is a really, really good player, but he is an overseas spinner who doesn't bat. He took fewer wickets than expected last time, but he had the best true economy of all the offies, if we actually consider him an off spinner in the last 3 seasons. He can bowl all the way through the innings, and I think if anything, he's slightly underrated just because he doesn't take a lot of wickets. If you're looking for a spinner who doesn't go for any runs, so that you have an attacking spinner at the other end, this is your ideal partner. Noor Ahmed was the only left-arm wrist spinner other than Kuldeep in the previous mega auction cycle. He had a true economy of 0.88 with positive true wickets. I expected really big things of him though, and we didn't quite see that happen. I'm not sure his action is always completely repeatable. But I think he did pretty well last season, and I'd be willing to take a punt on him. Mujib has 257 wickets in T20 cricket. However, he has not played a single IPL game since the 2022 edition. I don't think he's quite as good as Theekshana, but if you're looking for a discounted Theekshana, Mujib is still someone worth having around. Gazanfar looked absolutely unplayable at the start of his ODI career. He's only 18 years old from Afghanistan, and he's not played a lot of T20, but I was watching him in those ODIs thinking, they have no idea how to play him. There's plenty of mystery there. I'm really fascinated because I would probably take him ahead of Mujib on this board. But I'm not sure all teams will feel that way, and at least with Mujib, you know you're getting a lot of experience. And then you got Shamsi, who still takes wickets everywhere and still never gets invited to the IPL. And now we have right arm seam, which of course is the thing that we see the most of. They deliver about 50% of all deliveries in T20 crickets, but also because people face it so much, they really like hitting it as well. And so if they aren't good, they're usually slaughtered in T20 cricket. I would say on this list, and I'm kind of shocked I feel this way, but Josh Hazlewood is by far the safest pick here. My main concern is that he missed last season, but we know he's just gotten so much better at T20 cricket, and he seems to be in form at the moment. My main concern with him is really age. When it comes to Rabada, you just know you're going to get a lot of wickets, and there's no issue there. Shami, however, was among the top wicket takers of the last mega auction, despite missing all of the last season. The biggest issue with him is age and injury history, right? Like on paper, he's only 1 year older than Josh Hazlewood, but it just feels because of his injury history, he's far riskier. Otherwise, I would have him as number 1 here. Those top 3, they're all going to go and they're all going to get some money. What happens next, though? Because no one knows which version of Mohammad Siraj will actually turn up on any day. In the last IPL cycle, he had a bad 2022, a great 2023, and a middling 2024. On top of that, you look at the recent test series, definitely looks like he's just a lot slower, right? He looks like he is a different bowler. When he's bowling in 130s, he doesn't look like the Mohammad Siraj who's about to, rip out your soul, which we saw in the World Cup. But because there aren't many bowlers of his talent level out there, or his experience, it's hard to have him too low on a list like this. For instance, I'm a big fan of Avesh Khan, but of recent times, he hasn't been playing very well. I still think there's enough there for him to have a very good season. Prashid Krishna I really like, but I think it has to be a team that's only looking for power play bowling. So with that in mind, you might be able to push him a little bit higher. And Vaibhav is another player who I think does really well in the power play, but how useful can those guys be in other parts of the game? Both of them can definitely develop, but you have to take a bit of a punt on them. Whereas I think Avesh has shown enough in the other parts of the game with his slow balls that there's something there. Anrik Nortje, if fully fit, I might even have number 1 on this list. But I don't know where he is at the moment. Sometimes he bowls absolutely incredibly, and other times he's just slow and gets hit. Of the many things that Punjab did wrong last time, I think not using Nathan Ellis when he actually did really well for them was very, very high on that list. He always looked like he was in control, and his slow ball is still not very well played. Mohit, it actually hurts me to have Mohit this far down because it wasn't that long ago he was in this incredible renaissance. But he's even older now. I don't think he's getting the revs on his slower ball, and he really struggled last year. I'm hoping for a bounce back season. So, if he was low enough, I would still put some money out on him. Bhuvi is now a defensive bowler, and I think if you compare him with other attacking bowlers, he shouldn't be this low. I would actually probably still take him. In fact, I think you could make quite a few cases, but because Bhuvi's a little bit younger than Mohit, he should still be higher here. But it probably just depends on what you're looking for. Because there's a couple of other power play bowlers ahead of Bhuvi on this list, you might think that Mohit is the more important one. But I'm not averse to either of these guys. I'm very interested in how much people pay for a 34-year-old and a 36-year-old. But Harshal might be the most interesting player on this entire list because you could buy him for very little, and of recent times he's been going for a lot more than that, and he could suddenly get all of the revs back on that ball, and a bit like Mohit, he could storm back in. I think we have to give up on the idea that he's an all-rounder now, but all 3 of these players at the end here could have a very handy season. How they are towards the end of the cycle is really why we have them so low. Now, we split all those players up by player types, but of course, role definition plays a huge part here. So if you just want to power play bowlers, this is the list that we're looking at. And we've talked about quite a few of these players, so we don't have to go into them too much. Bolt, just because of what he does in the first over, is incredible. So if you're just looking for power play, he's probably still your best bet. Hazelwood isn't far away, and I think he's a better bowler later on, so you might be able to push him back up the list, but he's also most probably going to cost you a little bit more at the moment. And because he wasn't around last time, maybe people will be a little bit worried about that. Mohammad Shami, because he's Indian, might cost you the most. And if he's fully fit, I have actually no issue with that. If he's not fully fit at his age, I do worry about it. And I also worry about the next couple of years. You can see here that we have Prasidh Krishna ahead of Arshdeep at the moment, which just shows how good he's been in the power play when he's bowled there. The difference between him and Arshdeep is really after the power play. But the last bowler on this list is Jason Behrendorff, who we haven't mentioned at all. But I just want to say that when fully fit, which is very, very rare, Jason Behrendorff is an incredible power play bowler. The issue is that he's almost never fully fit, and he's starting to get on in years. We might never see the best of him in the IPL, but this is his last chance. If you're looking for someone just in the middle overs, Chahal is probably your best attacking option, and Ashwin is your best defensive option. Of course, with Ashwin, you also get a little bit of strategy and some batting as well. When it comes to seam bowlers, Siraj and Deshpande have been pretty good. There's a bunch of overseas spinners in here. You've also got Naveen and Ellis, who both in very different ways are very good at taking wickets in here. And Harshal Patel in the right bowling lineup, where he's like the 5th bowler and you don't have any other right arm seam to bowl in the middle, is a very good bowler here. In fact, if you have a good power play spinner and then a very good frontline spinner, Harshal Patel bowling in the middle with your other frontline spinner is an excellent partnership at what might be a discount rate. Yes, he's getting on a bit, so it might only be for a year or two, but it's something worth thinking about. And then we have the death, Natarajan at the top. I'm just such a huge fan of him. And it's a shame that the Sunrisers couldn't keep him around, but obviously it didn't quite fit. Everyone else on this list is going to make sense. It's worth mentioning that Naveen comes in again here. We've also seen him at times for Afghanistan bowl very well with the new ball. So we've got him down as a middle over specialist and a death specialist. But at his best, he can also take wickets up top. That angle that he bowls in is really tough for top order players. Mukesh is really interesting here. His raw numbers look terrible, but he's played on a lot of high-scoring venues, and he concedes 1.33 runs less than expected. And he bowls a lot of Yorkers as well. Bhuvi got absolutely met at the death last time. I'm hoping it's just an aberration, but if not, he's a power play and bust bowler. But he went at 2 runs and over, more than we would have expected. But that was his only bad year, and remember some of the wickets the Sunrisers played on. Yes, I know he was still bad even when factoring those wickets in, but that's going to shake any man. We've also got Mustafiza here, who I don't think is as great at the death as he was at his peak, and even when he had a bit of his comeback. But he knows how to bowl at the death, and he's very trusted, and he's the sort of player who wants to do it. And you'll see Chahal is the only spin here on our list, and that's because he's the only bowler who's bowled 100 deliveries at the end of games in the last 3 seasons. He's not a high usage bowler in this period, but it is worth remembering that he's a natural wicket taker at this point. And also, if you've got an Indian spinner who can bowl into the death, that gives you a lot of flexibility. So that's it. That's our IPL bowling big board. If you ask me tomorrow, I will move all the players into different orders. But what we really wanted to show you is who is available and what kind of things they do and who they're up against. So subscribe and like, and we'll get going on the batting big board as well. Also, tell us where you have the players in the comments, but mostly, just like and subscribe, and tell your mum about us. I have a book out with Abhishek Mukherjee, and it is called Overthrowing Cricket's Empire. And it's about the stories of how each team beat England for the first time. We go all the way back to the demon Fred Spofforth getting annoyed at W.G. Grace for acting a little bit like Alex Carey. And then we come all the way to present times with Rashid Khan's England's redemption. We cover every single team to beat England in a major international, but we also talk about the incredible stories, like the barefoot basher from Fiji that almost played for New Zealand. In fact, this book is full of tales like that, like how Pakistan lost a top batter after he was on the run from an angry husband of a movie star he was having an affair with, and also how one future captain of his nation realised he might have to go out and bat at Lords and that he didn't own his own pads. Cricket was used as a tool by the Empire, but what happens when those nations grow up and get good at it? Find Overthrowing Cricket's Empire on Amazon today.